From the stable of a legend, Nigeria's number one.
My name is Yemi Sat. Oh yeah, now. Oh yeah, now. Oh yeah. It is your favorite #1 Nigerian saxophonist. My name is Yemi Sax.
Spells on the beat. See what savage on this one, yeah. Whiskey, do you want mama? Make it animals to tingle. If no be you, then tell me who. Nobody messing with my boo. If no be you, then tell me who. Nobody messing with my boo. If no be you, then tell me who. Nobody messing with my boo. If no be you, then tell me who. Nobody messing with my boo.
My name is Yemi Sax. Yemi Sax.
I say good morning to you, and I welcome you to the official relaunch of the United Capital SUKUK Fund. My name is Sumaya Abubakar, a TV host, presenter, and your host for today. I will be taking you through the event this morning with my co-host, Emmanuel Akehomen. And we hope to make it as swift as possible due to the time factor. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that you should put a round of applause for yourself because you all look radiant. Like my people say, kuna kamshin kudi. You all smell of money. Don't you agree with me, Emmanuel?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, I do agree. Thank you very much, Samir. Said Abuja is not just the seat of power, it's also the seat of money. I think on that note, my name is Emmanuel Akehomen, and I'll be your co-host as already mentioned earlier on. Going forward, we actually want to have the national anthem. My quick request, everyone please stand up as we have the national anthem. Thank you, everyone. We will be seated. All right. We actually want to start this program with prayers. Like to say, prayer is the key, and everything we need to do, we need to come into the hands of God. And on that note, I would like to invite Mahmoud Shuaib, who's the director of the Northern Region, United Capital PLC, to help us open these events with prayers.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. This to welcome each and every one of us to this program. Without wasting much of our time, I would like to invite our Sheikh from Nasfat, who is our Zona Missioner, in person of our Sheikh Sharafdin Absalam Aliaga, to come and give us the opening prayer.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning to everyone. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give this relaunch a maximum success. May this program bring us all forms of success and not failure at all time. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, all praises are due to Allah, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, most gracious, most merciful. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Guide us to the right path. Surat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim, the path of those who have earned your favor. Ghair al-maghdubi alayhim wal-dhalin, not the path of those who have evoked your anger and have gone astray. On this note, inshallah, as usual in my profession, I will still for 1 minute ask my most senior colleague, the Chief Imam from National Mosque, to come up and round up this opening prayer. Sheikh Ahmed, please come to the stage.
أعوذ بالله سميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أتمان الأكملان على خير البرية من عرب ومن عجم سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. I seek refuge in Allah against the rejected enemy, Shaitan. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the evolver and sustainer of the world. May the benedictions and salutations of Allah be upon our holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well on other prophets of Allah. May the benediction of Allah be upon their families and everyone that is here today for this refund of the SUKUK Foundation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, not only you, the owner of the SUKUK, we ourselves, we are part of members of you. May Allah give us all success in all our undertakings. بحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله.
Go ahead. Acknowledgement.
All right, thank you very much, Chief Imam, National Mosque, Sheikh Ahmed Unilewura. And also thanks to the Zonal Missioner, Nasfat FCT, Sheikh Sharafaddin Abdusalam Ali again for the prayers, and also Mr. Mahmoud Tribe. Going into the next item on our agenda will be the opening remarks by the chairman of the event. I will hand over to my co-MC to give the introductions and also introduce the chairman of the event. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the relaunch of the United Capital SUKUK Fund. The launch of United Capital SUKUK Fund was first introduced in Lagos State on the 7th of December 2020. The management decided to relaunch it here in Abuja to bring the product to the doorstep of the northern states in the country. The United Capital PLC management, in their wisdom, decided to create an alternative product. It's not an Islamic product, just saying, for their esteemed clients to fit their ethical values. So you will hear in the course of this event the objectives of United Capital SUKUK Fund and the benefit of it, both socially and morally, to all investors and potential investors. On that note, we would like to call up the chairman of the event. The chairman and CEO, Bura Capital Limited, a man with postgraduate diploma in banking and finance, Milan, Italy, BSc in business administration, of course, from Ahmadu Bello University. And my apologies, but due to time factor, this man, all I can say is he has achieved a lot in his life. So please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the chairman and chief executive officer, Burak Capital Limited, beg your pardon, Alhaji Muhammad Mustafa bin Tubi, for the opening remark.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Distinguished guests, distinguished brothers and sisters, and I can see I have many brothers and sisters over here. including the Group Managing Director of United Capital, Mr. Peter Chade. I can see Ambassador Sariki, I can see Ambassador Bello, is that Hajia? There are so many of them. So let me not put myself in the info. Our distinguished Imam and our brother from Nasfat, our guest speaker, Dr. Latif Bello, etc., etc. Due to time constraint, I think, please accept my apology. I cannot go through all the roll call. I would like to thank the organizers, United Capital, not only for inviting me, but for giving me the privilege and honor to chair this very august occasion. As you all know, United Capital is among the top, if not the top, investment banking and capital market operator in Nigeria. The main reason why we are here today is because of non-interest banking or Islamic finance. Is growing globally. Industry assets continue to grow in double digits. More players are embracing it. HSBC, Amana was among the first pioneers. Subsequently, Deutsche Bank, UBS, Barclays Bank, etc. Came to embrace it. And they're doing it with a lot of passion and with zeal. In the Middle East, we have the Dubai Islamic Bank, which started way back in 1975, almost the same time with the Islamic Development Bank, where the guest speaker has been working. We have Al Barka Bank, Al Raji Bank, etc. In Malaysia, the central bank called Bank Negra played a big role in the establishment and growth of Islamic finance in Malaysia, and is growing in leaps and bounds in Malaysia. Other banks like Maybank, which is one of their top banks, is offering both Islamic and conventional finance. I remember we visited them when we were trying to establish Jais Bank way back in about 2005, 2006. In Nigeria, Jais Bank and Lotus Capital are the pioneers in the banking sector and the capital market, respectively. And with all sense of humility, it is the coming on stream of Jais Bank that really pushed the regulators, the central bank, the Securities and Exchange Commission, NDIC, NIACOM, etc., to roll out the necessary regulatory framework, which enabled the coming on stream of other players in the market. And if you don't have the players in the market, the operators, more Islamic finance institutions, both the regulators and the customers and other stakeholders will not take us serious. So I am very glad to see more institutions coming. Now we have not only Lotus Bank, we have Lotus Capital, we have Sterling, they have also have coming up with a full pledge. We have Taj Bank, and I think SunTrust is also offering a window, IBTC, etc., etc. In May, now coming back to SUKUK, when we started Jais Bank, we had deposits, we had investors' equity, all sitting idle in the central bank. And as you know, even equity has its own cost of capital, and then also depositors. Now, while my colleagues in the Bankers Committee were always glad to take depositors' money and put it in treasury bills, and would be making money even when they are sleeping, because T-bills is almost risk-free. At that time, rates were very high. We are talking about double digits, 18, 19%. And the governor of central bank then, the former emir of Kano, kept on pushing them that they are doing lazy banking. They just take depositors' money, put it in treasury bills, and go to sleep. Now, for us in Jais, just keeping the money in the central bank, we are incurring losses every day. While on the conventional side, they are making money every day, even when they're sleeping. So I was privileged in May 2012. There was a retreat of the Bankers Committee And I was given the opportunity to make a presentation, and I made a very compelling story with all sense of humility about the need to create liquidity management instrument, in particular about SUKUK. And I think from there, the central bank took us seriously and established a technical committee to look at the SUKUK. The rest, they say, is history. In 2017, as you all know, the major thing came. The FGN sovereign SUKUK came out with 100 billion debut offer. It was oversubscribed by about 112 or nearly 120%. Then the second one was about 120 billion. It was also oversubscribed by about 20%. But the mother of all was the third series. The DMO issued 150 billion SUKUK, but it was oversubscribed to about 600 and something billion, so over 500% increase. So if you see all this, you can say that Islamic finance is beginning to be integrated into the Nigerian financial system. And thanks to the efforts of all those players that I mentioned. Another thing, big thing is that the pension industry itself is now beginning to also come into the play. They're taking a major place on the stage. They have started launching Fund 6, which is a Sharia-compliant fund. I've been invited to one or two, and it was very successful. Recently, Bora Capital were pleased and privileged to lead as one of the lead financial advisors of Family Homes Fund, the first corporate to be listed on the stock exchange and FMDQ. We came out to raise 10 billion, and we were able to raise over 21 billion. It was highly oversubscribed. And just to tell you the position of the pension funds, the PFAs invested, their share of the participation was about 60%. So like I said, there are major players on the stage, and we shouldn't take them lightly. I'm also pleased to tell you that there is another series now. After the first three series, another series is in the offing. So I think you better put on your either boxing gloves or your running shoes. Yeah. So with all this, I can say that the future of not only SUKUK, what we are here for today, but Islamic finance in Nigeria is very bright. And we expect, collaboration. Collaboration is the new competition. The more we collaborate, the more we bake the cake. And as the cake becomes bigger, everybody will have a piece of the cake. As for Dr. Bello, a long-time friend and brother since in the IDB days, when I've been, it's like people go to Mecca for Umrah and Hajj, I go to IDB for my pilgrimage, trying to get them to invest in Jais Bank. Alhamdulillah, after a lot of presentations, a lot of persuasions, IDB invested in Jais Bank, and they have a seat on the board of directors. And Dr. Bello really helped in a lot of ways, so please give him a round of applause for Dr. Bello is an economist par excellence. He's a statistician. He's a development banker. He's an accomplished academician, all rolled into one. He was headhunted when he was, I think somebody, let me not do the MC's job. He was I think, in Oxford University, and that was where IDB, I think, recruited him. And so I assure you, he will not only meet, but he will exceed your expectations today, God willing. I would like to really thank Mr. Peter Ashade and his team for taking this initiative. I know you since in your previous posting. You are also a go-getter. I believe under your leadership, this offer, or this launching is going to be a super success. And on this note, I would like to say a big, big thank you and welcome to all our distinguished guests. May the Almighty give us peace, progress, and stability in Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for that wonderful remark. You see why I said we cannot summarize his whole achievement when introducing him. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the secret of getting ahead is getting started. And Mr. Chairman has officially kickstarted the event. Please, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, just give a round of applause to Alhaji Mohammed Mustafa Bintuwe. I'd like to call on my co-host to introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Before I introduce the next speaker, I would like to recognize the presence of certain dignitaries within our midst. We have Barrister Nasiru Dangiri, SAN. We also have Alhaji Abubakar Suleiman, MD CEO, Nigerian Police Mortgage Bank. We also have Ambassador Usman Saki, and we also have Ambassador Bello Shehu Ringim in our midst. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome with a round of applause for all the dignitaries in our midst. All right, for the next item on the agenda, it's actually a welcome address by our very own group CEO, Mr. Peter Ashadi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning once again, everyone. Let me, the Chief Imam, National Mosque, Abuja, the FCT Zona Imam of NASFAT, here present, Chairman of Burak Capital, my boss. Well done, sir. Alhaji Mustafa Bintuwe. We've been together for almost 25 years. I met him. And since then, he's been a close mark at each of my career. Dr. Bello Abdulatif, the speaker, we are indeed very grateful for honoring this. Alhaji Munir Guazo, my boss. Well done, sir. Former DG of SEC. Alhaji Abdulkar Sulaiman, you are welcome. Ambassador Osman Saki, Ambassador Bello S. Ringim, Hajia Sutura Bello, an independent director, United Capital PLC, the executive director of our United Capital here. We have Sonia Nene, the CEO of Asset Management. As you know, United Capital is a group. We have 6 businesses that forms our portfolio. Today, we are here, celebrating one of us, and that is the asset management business. And we have the CEO in person of Odiri Ogini. You're welcome. And gentlemen of the press, welcome every distinguished ladies and gentlemen here present. We'll say good morning once again. It gives me a very great delight and pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to yet another history in the life of United Capital Group. This SUKUK, as you see, we're talking about relaunch today. There can never be a relaunch without a first launch. I'm happy to let the August gathering into the fact that this SUKUK was originally launched last year. We set out to raise $1 billion because we are trying to test waters. We came with ₦1 billion. That was December last year, early December last year. I'm quite delighted to tell you that as of today, we already have 1.5 billion. That is, it means it's already oversubscribed. So we are quite very happy to, come here to launch today, because we believe, yes, we have launched in Lagos. And I recall most of the time when we have our meeting, we said, we have not launched in the home of SUKUK. We should take it to where it was originated. And luckily, we're able to fine-tune that. We will have launched earlier, if not here, if not for, we're trying to balance the COVID. But by and large, it's indeed, my job is simple here, is to welcome everyone here. I want to believe that it's going to be a worthwhile event here, while this is just the beginning of a lot of things to be seen from the stable of United Capital PLC. On that note, as we sit here and listen to all we have for us today, I want to sincerely welcome each and every one of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Group CEO. That was Mr. Peter Ashadi, the Group CEO of United Capital PLC. Like I said, we needed to come all over to the seat of Sharia or Sukuk, or where we have a lot of Muslims in the northern region, to actually have this product being launched once again, because of how important the northern region is to the agenda of the company. So without wasting much time, I would like to call on my co-host to also help introduce the next speaker.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to introduce the next speaker, I would like to acknowledge or to recognize the presence of Chiroman Kurji, architect Mansour Kurji. Oh, my apologies. Kurhi. Oh, it's Kurfi. My apologies. I got them wrong. So, on that note, I would like to present to you a woman. And I don't want anyone to call me a feminist, but I just feel I have to introduce this woman properly. It is said that behind every successful man, there is a woman. Behind the man of United Capital PLC is the woman that has all answers on asset management. I am inviting on stage the MD, CEO, United Capital Asset Management, to give the introduction of United Capital Sukuk Fund. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Please put a round of applause for Mrs. Odiri Ogini, CFA.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on existing protocol that has been established by the Group CEO. And for the purpose of today's event, my name is Ajia Saratu. Well, I've not been to Mecca, but I think I accept the name Ajia Saratu for the purpose of today, and probably before the end of today, or probably when the fund grows to 100 billion, I can take a surname in that direction. So I want to welcome everyone for honoring today's event. My job here is very simple, to take us to talk about the company behind the event, and also to introduce or provide more insight into the United Capital Sukuk Fund, how we started, and currently where we are as of today. So I'll be showing my slides, so just follow me. This is a bit too far from me, so I'll probably work with what I have here. All right, like Mr. Peter Ashadi rightly said, United Capital PLC is a group of company. We have about 6 business running under the group. We have the United Capital Asset Management, which is the company you are currently here to celebrate with. It's a portfolio management, investment management, and portfolio advisory firm, registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and managing assets across various asset classes, fixed income, equities, and across various currencies, dollars and pounds, mutual funds also, and privately managed portfolio. We also have the United Capital Trustee. The trustee is responsible for creating trust, private trust, living trust for individuals as well as for corporate and sovereign. We have the United Capital Securities, which is responsible for equities trading on the stock exchange, buy and sell trades, as well as fixed income trades. Then we have the United Capital Investment Banking Firm, which is the advisory part of the business, responsible for capital raising in the debt and equity side, debt and equity capital financing transaction, project finance, merger and acquisition, as well as structured trade finance. And then lastly, the new kid on the block is the United Capital Plus Advance, which is our consumer finance business, providing easy loans for salary earners, as well as asset-backed loans. I'll also speak to the facts and figures behind United Capital PLC, just to give you an idea of the company, that you will want to do business with. United Capital PLC currently has a total asset of about 320 billion. It's an investment grade rating from Augusto, A- for Augusto, and A+, from Data Pro. We have a total of 403 billion in funds under management, and we are the first to issue a bond in the market as a capital market operator. Last year, around May, we issued our first United Capital bond of about 10 billion, which was fully subscribed. We've also issued a number of CPs in the market, about 3 or 4 series currently. In terms of our gross earning, as of June this year, we generated a revenue of about 6.85 billion, which is 54% growth compared to the same period last year. In terms of our PBT, as at end of June also, we have 3.74 billion, which was a 65% growth year on year compared to the same period last year. In terms of our shareholders fund, we're currently at 23.6 billion as at end of June, half year, a shareholder base of over 260,000 plus, and a total account of about 200,000 also. So this is the pedigree of the company that we are here to ask you to do business with. So let's go on to United Capital Asset Management, which is one of the businesses within the group. United Capital Asset Management is a leading fund manager in Nigeria with asset under management in excess of about 320 billion across our mutual funds, gratuity fund management, as well as privately managed portfolio. United Capital Asset Management continuously leverages on the group, United Capital PLC, the access of the group to relevant financial markets to enlarge its clientele, as well as deliver value-added services to its institutional and individual clients. Over the years, we have sustained long-term growth for our clients' portfolio. We are a team of very experienced professionals, and we have a robust risk management framework in place. Just some key notable achievement for United Capital Asset Management also in the last 6 months as at H1 2021. We have a dollar fund, which currently is over $130 million. This fund was launched in 2017 and is the second largest dollar product in the market currently. In terms of our mutual funds, we are currently at over 190 billion, which is, as of today, also the second largest mutual funds manager in the market. In terms of our account, this year alone, we've opened over 1,200 new accounts for our clients. In total, we have over 35,000 accounts to date for both individuals and for institutional clients. And like I said earlier, in terms of our asset under management, we are currently at over 320 billion. In terms of our market share, you can see from the slide that we're also a growing company. In the last 5-6 years, we have grown significantly from 2016 with a market share of 1.3% to currently in 2021, a market share of about 15%. In terms of Thank you. In terms of corporate governance, it's something we don't joke with at United Capital. We're a publicly listed company, so the level of scrutiny and the level of corporate governance that is required from us is very tight. So looking at our corporate governance structure, as a fund manager, you're expected to have a custodian, so that the funds are held with a CBN registered commercial bank acting as an independent custodian, separate from you as a fund manager. Every fund also must have a fund trustee, which must be registered also with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So if you look down below, we have our custodian across different firms. We have Stanbic acting as custodian for us. We also have, for some of our portfolio, we have UBA GIS acting as custodian. We also have FCMB acting as custodian also for some of our portfolios. In terms of trustee, we have Emerging Africa as one of our trustee for some of our portfolios, GTL trustee, as well as Union Trustee Limited for some of our portfolios. In terms of our investment committee, we have over 80 years cumulative experience in funds and portfolio management. Risk management structure for us is a very important part of ensuring that investors' funds are well protected and preserved. Our compliance also, the structure is very tight. And for our SUKUK fund, we have a SEC-registered and approved Sharia advisor for the fund to ensure that compliance with the Islamic tenets of the fund. Now let's go to the purpose of today's event, which is to look at the United Capital SUKUK fund. So the United Capital SUKUK fund is an open-ended mutual fund that will be invested in naira-denominated Sharia-compliant securities, the operative word being a Sharia-compliant security, an investment product that is floated by the federal government of Nigeria, as well as corporate entities and sub-sovereign entities. Those securities are approved by the Commission and they are permissible under the Sharia principles in varying proportions. What is the objective of this fund? The goal of this fund is essentially to provide investors with a low-risk investment with stable and competitive returns through investment in short, medium, and long-term Sharia-compliant securities and investment products, while at the same time we ensure that their capital is preserved and we're able to provide a reasonable level of liquidity for the portfolio. The aim is to provide unit holders with halal profit on the growth of their capital over the long term in accordance with the principles of Islamic finance. The chairman spoke earlier about the growth in the SUKUK market and the different offers that have come into the market, which is very, very significant in the last 3 to 4 years. But one of the things we've noted as an asset management firm is that there are retail investors who are not able to invest in some of these instruments because of the large ticket size that is involved. So essentially the SUKUK fund is basically to pull funds from these retail investors who are not able to access for a minimum ticket size is about 250,000 naira. How many people really have that? Yeah, people have that, but to a large extent, the retail investors are left out of that opportunity. So as an investment management firm, we thought it wise to set up a fund, that will give people the opportunity not to trade off their ethics and values. Why? Because they want to earn return, but to also have the opportunity to enjoy both sides. So the retail investors can put their funds in the United Capital SUKUK fund, and then we take advantage of those lucrative instruments in the market that are in accordance with the principles of Islamic finance. So a brief summary of the investment offer. United Capital Asset Management is the fund manager. The offer, when we opened initially in December last year, was an offer for subscription of units in the fund. We started with an initial size of 1 billion, and like the group CEO rightly said, today we are at 1.5 billion. The minimum investment amount is 10,000 naira and subsequent investment of 5,000 naira. Now, for minimum investment period, what that means is that investors have, when they invest today, they have access to their funds, but only after an initial period of 90 days. So they can give them the opportunity to grow their funds within that period. But after 90 days, they can withdraw their funds without being charged any penalty. It doesn't mean that within that 90 days, they cannot access their funds. They have the opportunity to access their fund if they want to and if they need to. But what that means is that they will have to suffer a penal charge of about 20% on their accrued capital, on their capital appreciation as at that time. In terms of asset allocation for the fund, between 60% and 80% is invested in SUKUK, already issued SUKUK of the FGN, states, and corporate SUKUK issuance. Today, we've seen a number of corporate entities come out to issue SUKUK, which is very good for the market, and also creates better outlet for us as a fund, to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And then between 20% and 40% is invested in non-interest bank deposits, Mudaraba, and other Sharia-compliant contracts. And the goal of this is just to provide liquidity for the fund. A number of our non-interest banking deposits are usually with Jazz Bank, which is very good. We also have Sterling Bank also as part of the counterparties that we deal with. And essentially just to provide liquidity for the fund within a short period of time. And then also speaking to the investment summary, this is our position as of today. Like I said earlier, we started with 1 billion. As of today, we had 1.5 billion, and the fund is growing. And because it's a retail fund, we are not, we believe that within the next maybe few months, we'll probably cross 2 billion, 3 billion, probably even 5 billion in terms of fund size. In terms of the current portfolio holding, we have about 20.8% currently in non-interest bank deposits. We have about 75.2% with sovereign SUKUK bonds, which is the FGN already issued SUKUK bonds. We have about 4% in corporate SUKUK bond, and then we have nothing yet, or 0% in sub-sovereign SUKUK bonds. A number of those sub-sovereign bonds are currently coming into the market now, and we'll probably see an improvement in that area. But I think in summary, the goal of this fund basically is to ensure that investors don't have to compromise. If I want return, then I have to go after return and forget my values. I think for us as a firm, is being able to put those two options before a client and then ensure that return is covered, but also your values are not compromised, which is why for every of our investment, we must engage with the Sharia advisor and secure his approval, because he has to do a detailed review of whatever instrument we are investing in and ensure that the tenets or the principles of the fund is not compromised. For those who are looking to subscribe today, we have the account number also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Odiri Ogini. I must say, I'm sorry. My apologies. Hajia Sutura II, because I'm sure the first is here. Oh, Sarah too, okay. Thank you very much. I must say, when you mentioned billions, the Igbo in me pushed the Fulani away. And also when you mentioned investments and liquidation, my mind went to Noah with the ark, because I feel that he is the most successful investor. He floated his stock while everything around him went into liquidation. Before I announce the next speaker, I would like to recognize the presence of Alhaji Atahiru Machudo, Sharia advisor to this SUKUK fund, and MD, CEO, 117 Capital Limited. And also Mr. Michael Shoumi, I hope I pronounced it right, Group Executive Director, Cedrus Group Africa. A round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who is going to talk to us about changing lives and achieving sustainable development with SUKUK. This is a subject in which we should all be deeply interested in, because it's by understanding what SUKUK has to offer. That way we can ensure our financial futures. Our speaker is a man with Master's and Doctor of Philosophy to his name, degree in Applied Statistics from the University of Oxford, UK. He also attended the Management Development Program of the Center of Management Development, London Business School, UK. As an international development banker, he served in different capacities at the Islamic Development Bank, IDB. for over 24 years in various positions as Director of Economy Research and Policy, Director of Data Resources and Statistics, and IDB Group Chief Librarian. He won an award for excellence in performance. He is an author and has served as a board member for several international bodies and initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Independent Non-Executive Director, Jaiz Bank, Dr. Abdul Latif Bello.
من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعه إلى يوم الدين. Respected brothers and sisters, let me stand on the assistant protocol so that I can save time. The title before us today is The Changing Lives and Achieving Sustainable Development with SUKUK. First and foremost, let me thank the invitees for the invitation sent to me. And I'm really honored to be with you here today. Before accepting the invitation, I told them that, well, at Islamic Development Bank, I used to write the frequently asked questions whenever they have roadshow for SUKUK. I never foresee that one day here I'll be the person talking about SUKUK. So I'll be more than happy to listen to your questions so that I can also share some thoughts, some of the answers going forward. I have a book here. Let's start. Okay. Yeah, so let me start because you cannot talk about SUKUK without talking about Islamic finance. There's a book before me here. The title, as you can see on the board, is Heaven's Bankers, Inside the Hidden World of Islamic Finance. It's a book that is highly recommended for everybody who wants to understand SUKUK and Islamic finance. So I urge everybody here who would like to know more about this subject matter to fetch the book either online. The book was published 2014, just a year before the oil crisis in 2015 and 2016, as well as food insecurity globally. Let me come up and just take some of snippet from the book. We talk about Islamic finance. What is the force about it? Now, the book is saying it's a $1 trillion financial industry that's revolutionizing the global economy. Second point, government and corporation globally are turning to this Islamic finance to fund economic growth. Third point from the book, sorry, what's going on here? In the West, we see that many of these countries are rapidly turning to it to fund some of their development projects. And we see Islamic assets rapidly increasing because Islamic finance is less affected by economic crisis. We saw that one in 2007, 2018 financial crisis. And I must tell you a story. The World Bank president at that time, we hardly see them coming to Islamic Development Bank, had to fly in to say, please, I want to understand from you why Islamic finance is resilient to financial crisis. So you can see the importance of Islamic finance globally, why many people are really interested in the secret behind it. And lastly, you know, it took 40 years, the book is saying, it took 40 years to build the first $1 trillion of Sharia-compliant financial assets. But the next trillion will be created within the next 2 to 5 years. The book was written in 2014. And by the time I finish this presentation, you confirm whether he was right or wrong. Let me give you a small introduction to Islamic finance. Well, people have different names for it. People call it ethical finance, non-interest finance, or Sharia-compliant finance. It's purely based on the principle of Sharia. Sharia means Islamic law. It comprises banking, capital market, and Islamic insurance takaful. If you look at the table given to us there, it's almost 70% of the Islamic finance assets in Islamic banking, and 20% from SUKUK. Other Islamic financial institutions constitute 5%. Islamic funds, similar to what you have here, is about 5%, and Takaful is just 2% globally. This is coming from ICD report. Sorry, I have problem with this. Well, Islamic finance offers services, product, and instrument that are Sharia compliant. It's fairly less risky because transactions are backed by physical assets. There's no speculation. So instrument can also be used to manage a range of financial activities such as credit, savings, investments, and trade. So let me talk about most of financing of Islamic Development Bank. The first, well, it's grouped into two parts. The first aspect of it is equity-based contract or participatory mode. So the first of it is musharaka. It's a joint venture. Musharaka means joint venture. Talk about profit and loss. You enter into a partnership with someone. You agree upfront how you want to share the profit. If there are losses, also will be reflected proportionally on your contribution. And then you have mudaraba. It's a trust financing. The two parties agree that, well, one person will be Rabbul Amal, the financier, the investor, and the second one is going to be an entrepreneur. So if there are losses, the Rabbul Amal, which is the financier, agrees to bear the loss. And then the entrepreneur, but it has to be a trust. There must be a trust between them. Otherwise, the guy will go and start making a lot of losses at the expense of the financier. So these are the two most of finance that falls under equity-based contract. The second group, which is called sales and lease-based contract, we have Ijara. Everybody knows leasing. The second one is Murabaha, often used for trade. And the third one is Istisna. And the last one is Salam, which is used for agriculture. Sorry, I need to move very fast because I just have 25 minutes. So let's go through this major financial principle of Sharia. Number one is a provision of interest. Everybody knows about this. In Islam, but the question everybody always asks is, you say you don't charge interest. How do you make income? So in Islamic finance, we have what they call markup or administrative service charge. So instead of calling it interest, because this is a question everybody keep on asking. You say you're a bank, how do you make a profit? Every year you keep on declaring profit. So there seems to be a dislocation or what do you call it, misunderstanding. So please, when we say there's no interest, it means there's no exploitation, the conventional interest you have. Let me explain what happened. When you go to a bank to take a loan, the bank gives you a loan and tells you this is the interest. If you fail to meet the terms of payment, the interest keep on multiplying. This is more like exploitation. Because the bank is not concerned about the trade or the work the individual is into. It could be natural disaster that affected him. It could be bandit that took over all his goods. So there must be a reprieve somewhere. So in a conventional bank, there's exploitation because the bank doesn't want to know. We give you money, you have to pay the capital as well as interest. So if you go back to what happened in Nigeria with the World Bank, during the Ngozi era, I think there was a write-off of our debt from Paris Club. To the World Bank alone, I think we owe close to 28 or 30 billion dollars, and almost 40% of that money came from interest, the accumulated interest, which you can never find in Islamic setup. The second prohibition is uncertainty. There must be clear, when someone comes to you, you have to explain the terms and conditions. You also have to explain how you calculated the markup. In a typical bank, they tell you, take it or leave it. This is the loan you want to take, 30% is the interest. When a typical Islamic bank, there should be no uncertainty in the contract. The third element of the principle is risk-taking as well as profit sharing. So if there's a risk, if there are losses, both parties will bear the loss together. And if there's a profit, both parties also share in it. The fourth element is ethical investment. In Islamic finance, you cannot invest in alcohol, pornography, gambling, pork-based product, and so on. So it's ethical investment. That's why they call it ethical financing. The fifth is ban on speculation. You know, you cannot speculate based on what do you call it, the products or whatever you are into in terms of the transaction you are seeking help on. And the most critical or the crucial aspect of all the principle is asset back. You cannot just walk to a bank, an Islamic bank, take loan and just disappear. No, it has to be back. That's why it is called a finance that is linked to the real economy. It's the only instrument you find in the world that is actually linked to the asset, the real economy. You cannot just walk to an Islamic bank, take money without asking you on what basis you are seeking the loan. It has to have relevance to human beings and the economy. So it has to be asset backed. These are, in a nutshell, the major principle of Sharia. You know, you cannot have all these activities going on without having an architecture that ensure that you have consistency in the way all these Islamic finance operate. So we have many international Islamic finance institutions that are set up to promote international consistencies in Islamic finance. The first of them is IFSB, which is based in Malaysia. It issues global prudential standards and guiding principles for the industry. I serve as a member of their task force developing the prudential database for almost 3 years when I was at Islamic Development Bank. Then we have this AOFI, which is based in Bahrain. It issues international standards on accounting, auditing, and corporate governance. And the last one is ILM, focusing on liquidity management, facilitating effective cross-border Islamic liquidity management. So these are the major three Islamic financial industry architecture that are there to promote unity, promote standards and consistencies. Now, let me move. Sorry, I'm having a challenge with these things. Now, globally, according to the latest, 2020, the banker, we have 402 financial institutions reporting Sharia assets globally. Of that number, 284 are standalone Islamic financial institutions, while the remaining 108 are Sharia-compliant banking windows. Now, if you look at the top 10 countries with the highest number of Islamic banks, you have Iran, Malaysia, and so on and so forth. So you can see mostly they're all Islamic countries. Now, let's move to SUKUK. You cannot talk about SUKUK without Islamic finance. So giving you this background helps me to explain SUKUK in a better form. SUKUK, the singular word, it's a plural, and the singular of SUKUK is called SAC. It means certificate, deed, order of payment, or check. So even people said the origin of check, the name, came from SAC, which is SUKUK. Well, I went through the literature to see how people describe SUKUK. Some people call it Islamic bonds, okay? Another one called it bonds which circumvent Islamic banks in interest. Another one called it bonds that round trip real asset from the borrower to the lender and back again to the obligor. It's not my words, please. I'm quoting them from the literature. Another one called it Islamic investment certificate, which everybody knows. Islamic capital market securities. Sharia secularization market, and lastly, Islamic securities. So these are how, if you find anywhere where any of these things are mentioned, they refer to SUKUK. Now, what is the definition? According to AOFI 2004, SUKUK are certificates of equal value representing undivided shares, ownership of tangible assets. So when we say asset back in the area of SUKUK, that asset cannot be divided. So you just have a portion of it on paper. You cannot go and say, well, I want to withdraw, give me my money, and then they say, oh, this is your own portion. No. You just have undivided shares in the ownership of that tangible asset. Now, why SUKUK? Well, everybody keep on asking the question. It is used to raise capital. you want to expand your operation, you need money to finance development activities, you need to go to the capital market. So if you want to go to Islamic capital market, you need to go to SUKUK. So the first purpose of SUKUK is to raise capital. Second reason, you know, in the past you have few financial institutions that can put money in bonds and what have you. But this one allows you to diversify the investor base. So instead of just few people and benefiting, you have wide range of opportunities to invest your money. That's what SUKUK came to do. The third element is liquidity management. You have so many liquidity around. People stole money, hide them somewhere. Is it possible to encourage them to come and bring the money into the, instead of federal government going to the World Bank, IMF with so many conditionalities? So SUKUK is here also to help the government or corporation to manage liquidity. The fourth element is we have physical deficit. Government is always complaining they have shortfall in their budget and physical deficit. So you need to finance. It's either you draw down your savings or your reserves, which is not a good economic, smart economist. You have to find a way to raise the money somewhere, or you borrow from World Bank, what have you. So SUKUK is here to play that particular role. And then, this, as I said before, it's a primary source to fund capital development infrastructure as well as to business expansion. And then because SUKUK, whatever form you go for, you have your capital that is preserved. You put your money there, they promise you that you will be having a stream of income. So at the end, when there's a buyback from the borrower, what happens? You take back your capital. So I will come to there when I'm explaining the what they call a SUKUK structure. And then the origin of SUKUK, I will not spend a lot of time here. It dates back to the 17th century, and it's coming from the verses of the Quran, where God says that if there's a transaction between two people or more, there should be involving future obligation in a fixed period of time. You have to reduce it in writing. So it's a command in the Holy Quran. So that's where the genesis of SUKUK emanates from. And then after that, for all this long, from 17th century, what really brought about a radical change in the use of SUKUK is the Saudi-based Fiqh Academy in 1988, when they set the tone for the evolution of the SUKUK. If you read what they wrote there, any combination of assets or the use fruit of such asset can be represented in the form of written financial instrument, which can be sold at a market price, provided that the composition of the group of assets represented by the SUKUK, you see the word SUKUK was mentioned there, consists of a majority of tangible assets. So this is really the genesis of SUKUK, the statement coming from the Fiqh Academy. And then from there, 2 years later, just after 1988, the first SUKUK was issued in Malaysia. From 1990, just 2 years after, which was 1990, the first SUKUK was issued by Malaysia. 125 million Malaysia ringgit was the first domestically issued. Then 11 years later, we saw also Malaysia first international US dollar. The first one was domestic, and the second one was international SUKUK, issued by Malaysia, another corporate organization. And then interestingly, we saw the GE. Wow. Okay, outside the Muslim world, the General Electric, based in America, became the first major UN company to issue SUKUK in 2000. It sold a 5-year, 500 million Islamic bond in order to attract international investors who want to invest according to Islamic principle. So they have a huge, if we talk about JP Morgan, HSBC here and there, they have many investors from Arab world. And not to cater for their needs, they have to expand their scope. So they came out with SUKUK, a lot of Islamic, product, so that instead of forcing them to take the money to other places, they created a lot of windows to accommodate their needs. Now, let me try to prove to you that SUKUK has nothing to do with religion per se. Nobody should be afraid of. Number one, you look, United Kingdom. Everybody knows that if you look at the Muslim population in that country, it's just 6.3%. That's UK. It was the first non-Muslim country to issue their own SUKUK 2 billion pounds. That was in June 2014. Hong Kong is also not, a non-Muslim country, 4.1% Muslim population. September also, just imagine, June 2014, 3 months later, Hong Kong. And let's see, which other country again? Luxembourg, it's an European country. Population Muslim, 3%. And let's see Africa, South Africa, 1.9% population of Muslim. September 2014, $5 billion. Ivory Coast, well, it's a country with about 42, a sizable population of Muslim, for 3%. And then Togo, our neighbor country here, 20%. So if you look through, is there any fear for anybody here to say, well, Sukuk is linked to religion here and there? So by now, most of these countries will have been Islamized, if it is true that Sukuk was there to Islamize all these people. Imagine 2014, we're now 2021, 7 years. If Sukuk was there to really, force everybody to be, or to Islamize a country, we'll be saying all these countries are now Muslim countries. Now, let me give you statistics of what really happened. Since 2001 to 2020, look at the number of countries that have issued Sukuk. All of them are in red. The rest ones are non-Muslim countries. China, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, South Africa, France, Germany, Luxembourg, United Kingdom, USA. Imagine USA also issuing a Sukuk. And we have never heard that they have been Islamized. So please, don't be afraid of Sukuk. Focus on the relevance of that Sukuk in terms of expanding or diversifying your investment opportunity. Don't look at what people are just singing, the song they're singing. If it is true that Islamic Sukuk or Islamic finance products are here to Islamize a country, all these countries today, as we are talking, will have been transformed to an Islamic country. So please, focus on what is in for you, not what people are, the rhetorics in the newspapers. Now, let me move to Sukuk, the similarities versus traditional bonds, because we need to understand this proper. In similarities, both of them there's payment stream. So every quarter or half a year, you get something. You have periodic coupon that you get from investing in Sukuk. The similarity also is both of them are used to raise capital, whether you use conventional or what do you call it, a Sukuk Muslim approach or Islamic approach, you are here to raise capital. That's your own objective. Where they also have commonality is both of them are safe than equities, And the last point here is you can issue them both in local and international currencies. So whether you live locally or you want to seek opportunity internationally. And lastly, both can be defaulted. So these are the similarities. Now, let me go to the differences. Sukuk involves asset ownership. So there must be asset backing the structure of Sukuk, while bonds are just debt obligations. Okay? The second difference, asset that back Sukuk are Sharia compliance, whereas bonds are often riba in the finance non-Sharia compliant business of fuel or fuel speculation. So in Sukuk, it has to be asset back, and the product that you are really, financing, must be free from alcohol, gambling, all these things that are forbidden. And the third element here is Sukuk investors receive profit. I told you before, in Islamic terminal balance, we talk about markup, profit, and administrative charges. These are the three words we use. So Sukuk investors receive profit, whereas the bond investors receive interest payment. And the last, when you want to issue Sukuk, you must have a Sharia board. The Sharia board must verify, review, endorse to guarantee that all aspects fulfill Sharia standard and principle, which you don't have in the convention, in the traditional bond. So these are the similarities and differences between Sukuk and traditional bonds. Now, let me explain Sukuk in a layman language. Because we live in Nigeria, I will use the federal government, the boot Sukuk. I will try to demystify the concept of Sukuk in a layman language. So sorry, there will be small differences from what the government published. I try to make it more easy and interactive. This is the federal government of Nigeria. It needed to raise 100 billion naira with maturity of 7 years. So that means I want to borrow this money for 7 years, okay, at a markup of 16.7%. I will not use the word interest, it's markup or profit for any investors. And the government is trying to use Ijara Sukuk, that means leasing Sukuk. So, as I mentioned to you, we have all these modes of financing, Mudaraba, Musharaka, Istisna, Salam, Ijara, Istisna. All these, you can apply them in Sukuk. Just put Sukuk, Ijara Sukuk, what do you call Murabaha Sukuk, Mudaraba Sukuk, Wakala Sukuk. All these are, so since I've explained the concept under Islamic finance, it's just adding the word Sukuk to each one of them. I don't need to go back again. Now, the federal government, if you see the red below, is the borrower. So the government who wants to borrow the money is called the borrower. And it's also called the originator. So in the concept of Sukuk, we use the word originator because the one who is originating the fund. And then it's also the obligor because, you see, from a borrower, the government will become an obligor because it's obligatory on him to buy back the product, the underlying asset. That's why it's called obligor. So the role of the person who wants to, what do you call it, raise capital through Sukuk, he will be a borrower. It's the same name as originator, and it's also called obligor. Now, to raise this capital, that's what they call special purpose vehicle. It's a company that the federal government must set up. So you can see it's a PLC. This SPV is the issuer. You know, if the government want to flow Sukuk now, the government will not be the person to tell you, call on the subscriber, what they call investors to bring money. No, you have an independent body called SPV. It's a vehicle. It's a company that is standalone. It is registered. So it's the issuer of the Sukuk, and it's also the trustee. So, because you cannot trust the person who is issuing Sukuk, anything can go wrong. Why you need an SPF? In case anything goes wrong, you should be someone to hold responsible. So let's see what happened between the two. The federal government has the land. You know, there must be an asset. The government has the land on which it wants to build the roads. That's the only thing it has now, because the road has not been built. It must have an asset. It's just like a collateral. When you go to a bank, you need money, you have to be collateralized. So the government says, right now, I need to use the money to build roads and repairs some of the bad roads. But what I have now is the land. So I'm using this land now as an asset. The interesting thing about Sukuk is that the price of that land must be higher or equivalent to the 100 billion. Because if anything goes wrong, suppose the cost of the land is just 10 billion and something goes wrong, that means the investor will not be able to take their money. So first thing you have the government has to do is someone has to evaluate the cost of that land that the government is using as collateral. You get it? I think you are following me. So the first thing the government did was it transferred the right to land for construction of road to this SPF. So okay, I'm transferring that right to you because you are the person who has to go and bring money from investors. Now let's see what happened next. Now, the government says, okay, I've not started building the land, but to pay you this money in advance, I'm using what they call forward lease agreement. You see, forward. I don't have the land, the roads are not yet for me to start taking the rent and pay you. So I said, okay, it's forward. I'll be leasing this in the layman language. Let me reach an agreement with you that the lease, money coming from leasing the property, the what they call roads, will not be coming now. It will come forward in future. So this is the relationship between the government and SPV. There's going to be an undertaking, and they will sign an undertaking based on this agreement. Let's see what happened. Then the SPV declares trust over the roads to be constructed. You know, the road is, so it is, that's why we call them a trustee. The SPV is the trustee because it has to declare the trust. Yes, I trust the government that they will build the road and then they will deliver. Now, Sukuk order, what then happened? The SPV call on all investors. Well, we have this 100 billion Sukuk, we want you to subscribe to it. You see, the SPV, its job is to do what? To issue. That's why we call it issuer. The name of the SPV, you see I put it in red there, is an issuer as well as trustee. So what will he do? He invites the investors to subscribe to the offer of the 100 billion. And what he will do, he issues certificates for each of these investors. If you come in with 100 million, I will tell you, yes, this 100 million is certificate for the money you paid. Now, the SPV now enter a construction agreement with the federal government. You know, it's still with the SPV is dealing with the federal government. It's not dealing with the what do you call it, Minister of Power, Works and Work. It's the federal government that appoints the ministry as a service and construction agent. You see the logic. SPV is not dealing with multiple people. It's only dealing with the federal government. That's why I put the flag of Nigeria there. The Minister of Finance of what is just the servicing and construction agent. Simple. Okay. What then happened? The SPV paid the government. You say you need 100 billion. I've gone to the market, got the 100 billion. I've issued certificates, SUKUK certificate to all those who are SUKUK holders. This money will be transferred to the federal government that requested the 10 billion, 100 billion. What then happened? The project is delivered. To who? To the SPV. You went to the market, brought the money passed to the government that requested the money, and then the project is now delivered to the SPV. What would the SPV do? The SPV now will turn back to the federal government and say, well, the roads that have been completed, I want to list it to you so that you can install toll gates, generate rent from the roads. So the money you now generate, what happened? You pass it on to the... Okay, now, when the government now take over the lease of the land, the federal government become the lessee. The SPV is now the what? The lessor. So the property belongs to the SPV, and the federal government is the one that is leasing it, so you call it a lessee. So the federal government will lease it, run it, take money from those who are applying on the road, generate income from it, and the government, the money that is coming, these are the profits coming from the 100 billion, and then what happened? The federal government then passes it on. So let's see what the federal government did. It then appoints CBN and trustees. It opens SUKUK repayment account with the CBN. Ideally, nobody wants to know what happened to the CBN, what have in a real. So everything you see is supposed to be between the government and the SPV. But in order to give more assurance to the investors, the federal government put in the CBN. At least you have CBN. So what the federal government did is to open the SUKUK repayment account with the CBN, and then appoint the CBN as the paying agent. So whatever is coming from the rent, I'll pass on to you. You pay to the investors. Okay. Then the rent, the federal government, because it has a repayment account with CBN, pays the rent to the CBN, and the CBN does what? It pays the money to the SUKUK holder. Now, when all these are going on, and the project reaches its maturity, 7 years, the federal government is obligated, that's why they call it obligo, to buy back the asset and then pay the 100 billion back to the investors. Through who? Through the CBN and back to the shareholders. This is how the SUKUK is structured for a JRA SUKUK. I hope everybody understands. It's so important that you know where your money is going, so that there's no hanky-panky. So no, they've been talking about this SUKUK, I don't know what it's about. They took my money, I just know that CBN is involved. They talk about SPV. So during the question and answer time, if you have any question on this, I'm more than happy to explain to you. Now, there are two types of SUKUK. So when they say your money goes into SUKUK, you also have this in mind. The first one is asset back. If there's a default, that's why, we say asset back. You have, like the federal government is giving you land as its asset. the SUKUK in case of default, investors will have recourse to the underlying asset in the event the borrower cannot repay. So it's very important to bear in mind that you look for that word in the prospectus. When they give prospectus, make sure it is asset back. In case of a problem tomorrow, you should be able to get your money. The second one of the structure is called asset base. The borrower is the ultimate guarantor of the bond and not the asset underlying the SUKUK. This is the danger here, and almost 90% of all SUKUK you see today, they are all asset based. It's just on paper that yes, it's asset back, but in case there's a problem, you don't have access to that. You only have access to the borrower. You can only sue the borrower, not the asset. You don't have access to the asset. It's not what they call in real sense asset back. In theory, it's asset back, but you don't have access in case of default. You cannot lay claim to those assets. You can only lay claim to the originator. So you can only sue the originator that, yes, you told me. So they had a lot of default in the past. They had this DP World in the UAE. It was the first time they tested the definition of asset back and asset big. You know, before everybody believed it was just asset base. But later, back. But later on, because of the default in the DP World, they went to the court. That, well, this is what you say to us. In reality, this is what transpired. So please, when you want to put money in real SUKUK, go and look for these two words to be sure you don't regret when anything goes wrong. Now, there are many types of SUKUK. We have traditional SUKUK, which everybody, the one I've just explained. They use that to raise capital, and then the proceeds can be used for any purposes, including the sustainable development goals and any development project as well as business expansion. Then we have this green SUKUK. You've been hearing about that. I'm not sure whether the federal government has embarked on this. You saw this SDG. Everybody's talking about climate change that is changing our food security globally. We have this climate action. You have to mitigate or adapt to the climate change. So you have about 5 SDG goals that are related to this. So if you want to float green SUKUK, you can just focus on adaptation and mitigation, essentially on the environment. And then you have another type of SUKUK. We have social SUKUK as well as social impact SUKUK. So 2 of them are merged here. And both of them are used for health, education, women and youth, as well as SME. So 3 of these SDGs are relevant to this. Now, when it comes to social impact SUKUK, payment to investors will be conditional on achieving social results. So if you cannot achieve the result that you desire to do, the investors will not get paid. So that's under social impact SUKUK. And finally, sustainability SUKUK for social, environmental, as well as emergency situation, like pandemic. When you have this emergency situation, you don't have anywhere to turn to, you can use SUKUK to address those challenges. So Islamic Development Bank is the first to raise 1.5 billion sustainability SUKUK. And SUKUK is called SUKUK Al-Wakala. It to assist in addressing impact of COVID, focusing on access to essential services and SMEs financing and employment generation. You know, when the pandemic came, unemployment dived. So in order to help the SMEs and people to retain their job, the Islamic Development Bank came out with sustainability SUKUK. So these are all different types of SUKUK. Now, let me also talk briefly about other emerging SUKUK. It shouldn't be that we talk about SUKUK without touching on a few new emerging ones. That's what they call e-SUKUK, or digital SUKUK, or mobile SUKUK. In the next 5 years or so, everybody's moving to digital banking. We have not moved to that level in Nigeria, but with the naira coming in October, I think we'll be getting closer to that. So if you go to Singapore, Malaysia, advanced countries, they are into digital banking because it's very easy. Everybody has got his own ID, all your address, everything. You can do online banking without necessarily going to bank throughout your life existence. So that's what they call digital banking. So you can issue e-SUKUK. It's available for subscription online via the digital banking platform. In Malaysia, 24 banks participating as open to both retail and institutional investors. Another form of SUKUK is crowdfunding SUKUK, or security crowding. You know, crowdfunding is an emerging area. You're an innovator. You came up with something new, and you want investors to invest in it. You don't have money. Instead of going to the bank with interest and what have you, you can crowdfund. It means you say anybody, any amount you want to put, one person will say I have 5 naira, another one say 10,000, 20,000, 1 million here and there. When the product comes to the market and everybody starts buying it, you have equity proportional to the amount you put in. That's what they call crowdfunding. So in most countries, there's Islamic crowdfunding as well. If you go to Malaysia, Indonesia, it's widely used for SMEs and new invention. The third bit I want to talk about is blockchain SUKUK or macro smart SUKUK. Well, Indonesia is doing a lot here. It's Blossom Finance, floated twice, this type of blockchain SUKUK. You know, there's no way we'll not move to this blockchain SUKUK. Why? We have smart contracts. When you have this blockchain, I don't know whether many banks are into this smart contract. You give money to someone, if it fulfills certain conditions, automatically it will disburse the second money without going through all these papers. If there's an evidence that the money has been used properly, it comes through the computer, automatically it's what they call artificial intelligence will go through. Well, the terms and conditions have been fulfilled. To disburse the second, that's what they call smart contract. So you have this blockchain SUKUK, which is the future. I must tell you, the blockchain underpinning the Bitcoin will revolutionize the way we do things going forward. So whether we like it or not, it's the way forward. Whether the federal government block this cryptocurrency now, they cannot block the what they call it, the technology underlying it. It has many, many uses. So advanced countries are using it for smart contract. You don't need to hire 2, 3, or 5 lawyers in your organization. Just do one and then put it in the system. If the customer submit all this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, normally when you want to disburse, you say, okay, second disbursement depends on A, B, C, D. So you can put in the system and then to keep on disbursing. So you reduce the number of layers. And the last one I want to talk about is the WAKF SUKUK. WAKF, you know, this is an endowment SUKUK. So it's a new area, largely invested by philanthropic endowment and donor institutions. Upon maturity, owners of this SUKUK will have the option to donate all or part of the principal amount of social back to special purpose funds. So just a small, what do you call it, tip on where we're heading. So we should not finish this type of presentation and say, well, I didn't hear about this SUKUK. So just a short brief on emerging. So let me just talk briefly about green SUKUK as just one of the examples. We have this renewable energy, waste management, a lot of things dealing with environment, agriculture, that the government or anyone may want to issue SUKUK on. So they can go through green SUKUK. It's doing well in the last 4 years, from 2017 to mid-September 8.5 billion green SUKUK has been issued. You can see the number of SUKUK issued, about 159 green SUKUK globally in 4 countries. Now, let me go through the trends in global SUKUK issues. As of today, we have 1.42 trillion SUKUK issued globally. And if you look at the growth between 2015 and 2020, 158% growth. So you can imagine how important SUKUK is to the global economy. The first sentence we had is revolutionizing the global economy. I don't think any instrument anywhere in the world within the space of 2005 to 20, almost 6 years, you can have a growth of 158%. In terms of outstanding, that's the issuance, and then this is the outstanding. You have about 688 billion outstanding. Now, in terms of international versus domestic SUKUK, you know, we see another trend here emerging. International SUKUK has been moving slowly. Total international SUKUK is about 332 billion. But the interesting trend here is the domestic SUKUK. Look at the growth, 188% between 2005 and 2022. So there's an emerging trend that countries, corporations, Islamic financial institutions are into more domestic SUKUK than international SUKUK. That's the message I want to convey here. Trends international long-term for short-term SUKUK. Now, do you see the blue ones? These are the long terms. When I say long time, 5 years and above is what I mean by, you have short, medium, and long term. So most of the SUKUK we have, when they say short term, less than 12 months is what they mean short term. Medium is above, like what we have in the country is short term. So what you see now globally, both international and internationally, as well as domestic. On the left side, you have this international and the domestic. What do you see? Everybody seems to be going for long-term finance, SUKUK. That's just the message. Take the case of Malaysia. Government of Malaysia issued 1.8 billion SUKUK Wakala. Tenor is 30 years. Wakala. Agency contract. That's what the meaning of Wakala. So the trend now is to move from short term or medium term to long term. And I will tell you the reason later. Now let's look at SUKUK issuance in Africa. Our great country, Nigeria, did only one international SUKUK between 2021 to 2022. As well as our country also, so far, done 5 domestic issuances. If you look at Gambia, 556 times. It's a country 2 million population. They've issued domestic, SUKUK, 556 times, just in less than 11 years. So you can see the relevance of SUKUK in most of these small countries. Let's look at sovereign SUKUK, corporate SUKUK, and financial institution SUKUK. The sovereign SUKUK increased by 167% between 2015 to 2012. The corporate SUKUK, 76%, while the financial institution SUKUK grew by 309%, just over 6 years. Now, what are the reasons behind all this sudden surge? Crash in oil prices. We saw that in recent years, before pandemic, the government or globally all these oil-dependent countries, they had this crash in oil prices. And there's substantial government stimulus packages. When this COVID set in, the government put in a lot of stimulus packages. So the government needs money. So that encouraged a good number of sovereign SUKUK. When you look at the last table and the chart, financial institutions rose significantly in 2020 because they were seeking to strengthen their Tier 1 and Tier 2 capital bases hit by losses from COVID. That's the reason behind 309% growth. Now, I've spoken about all the good news, but there's also the downside. We've seen several high-profile defaults in SUKUK issuances. Most of them are corporate SUKUK. If the sovereign SUKUK is very rare, because unless the country does not exist, they will always find a way to pay the money. So Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, SAD group, the case is still on today. Imagine it's a family issue matter that broke out when the owner died. So the issue is still in court today. My organization also put money there, so we're still struggling to get the money back. Bahrain, a capital bank, also had default. And then the last one, which is of interest to everybody, is the U.S. energy firm. It was the first to run to trouble during 2008 financial crisis. And if you look at the story, the energy company issued 2 bonds, one conventional and the other one was SUKUK. The SUKUK one was doing well, proceed was coming nicely, but the conventional one was not doing well. So behind the scene, they were taking SUKUK proceed. It's like a pyramid scheme, and so they could not fulfill the terms and what have you. They didn't want to let the conventional bond holders know that something went wrong. So behind the scene, there was hanky-panky, transferring money from halal to non-halal, and the whole company collapsed. So they filed for bankruptcy, in America, Chapter 11. So let's also be aware that SUKUK can also be defaulted. I've mentioned the similarity, similar to conventional bank. So these are all cases, not only Islamic countries. I've given an example of what happened in the world. If you read this book, it went to details about each of these defaults, where they stand, and how they were able to resolve some of them. Last point here I want to mention is, in the event of issuer's default, SUKUK holders under asset back, I put the word there, under asset back SUKUK. I'm not talking about asset base will possess the asset and they can sell it to other buyers or keep it as an asset. But you cannot do this under asset base. So please be mindful when you're putting money in SUKUK. Now, I think the last speaker made life easy for me for introducing the mutual fund of, what do you call it, the United Capital. So I will not dwell much here. I thought there was opportunity to sell their product here, but notwithstanding, I will rush through. What you have this SUKUK fund. It's not new in Nigeria. It's been there. I think the chairman in his opening statement made mention of HSBC. What you have today, I mean, what do you call it, done by the United Capital is to follow the international trend. So we had this in Saudi Arabia. They had this HSBC SUKUK fund. It did well. They had, what do you call it, license. And then after that, Amana Participation SUKUK, I think the chairman also mentioned this. So these are the two good references to give you assurance that what the United Capital is doing is not to swindle your money. It has been done in other countries successfully. Nobody had any problem with HSB fund as well as Amana Participation. So be rest assured that this United Capital SUKUK, you see, HSBC call it an open-ended fund. They also call it an open-ended mutual fund. You can see the similarities. So please, we have this international good practice that is doing well overseas. So be rest assured that if you put your money in the United Capital Fund, nothing will happen to it because it has been well managed overseas. I thought I would talk about some of these good virtues, but I think I wanted to talk about the second one. Highly liquid with easy entry and exit. You see, they say 24 hours you can give notice and take your money, which means that you can, so if you sense anything abnormal somewhere, like inflation is sitting high and you feel that, well, I don't want to lose the value of my money, it's time for me to withdraw. So they made it very easy for you. You can redeem your money within 24 hours, which is very, very good things for anybody who wants to participate. I think they've talked about the low risk involved and then capital preservation. If you look at the basic facts there, you don't have to worry. The risk profile is very low. And then if you look, they put a lot, almost 80% of this as SUKUK in sovereign SUKUK. That means go and sleep. You don't need to have any fear. Sovereign SUKUK, I keep on mentioning it. When you put your money there, unless the country does not exist, that you have problem. So I think 75% of your money is guaranteed. So don't be worried. So this is just thing I just want to flag. Now, the title of my talk is about changing lives and achieving sustainable development with SUKUK. So I have a slide here, just one page. I'll go through to explain to you why SUKUK plays this important role. You know, why do you put money in SUKUK? Number one, the federal government raised SUKUK just to achieve financial stability. Okay, that's the first purpose. What do you expect when you achieve financial stability? You offset your fiscal budgetary shortfall. You crowd in private sector funds, because when you raise SUKUK, what do you need? You bring money from the private sector. So what do? You're stabilizing the financial situation of the country. You have productive use of idle funds. You have many pension funds. The chairman mentioned trillions of pension funds are seated there. There are thousands of cooperative societies in Nigeria. They have huge resources. They don't know where to invest it. So if you pull all this money together, it helps to stabilize the financial situation of the country. And then it also might help the countries to manage and deploy excess liquidity, not only government, financial institutions as well as corporate entities. When you have excess liquidity, you can deploy it in SUKUK short term or whatever, or even long term. You make a lot of money. And then business expansion. If the business expands, it helps the stability of financial condition of country. And the SUKUKs also help to deepen capital market. And lastly, to spur economic growth. Now, what's the result of all these things in terms of development impact? Number one, when there's a financial stability, what happens? More resources, when the government issues SUKUK, there will be more resources available to offset dwindling revenue, which in turn keep government afloat. So that's the first impact on, issuing SUKUK. The workers will receive salaries on time. You know, there's one time the government will say, well, from November, workers will not receive their salaries and so on. But when you raise SUKUK and there's financial stability, workers will receive salaries on time. They'll be able to send their children to school. Gain access to healthcare to improve lives. Okay. And it opens up investment opportunity for all. So you raise SUKUK, that means more people will have access to invest their resources. And lastly, it ring-fence capital investment, ring-fence capital investment, safeguard investors' funds. You know, your capital preservation helps what? To safeguard investors' funds. So if you put money and they say, well, your capital is ring-fenced, nothing will happen to your money, it's preserved, then you go and sleep. So it also helps. You don't want this pyramid or MMM where people put all their hope and then suddenly the money just disappeared. So you will never find this in SUKUK because your capital is preserved. So then the next point I want to talk about, the importance of SUKUK is to promote financial inclusion. And what is the expected impact? It promotes participatory development, inclusive development. You know, when you say inclusive development, there are three things that form, there's a difference between inclusive growth and inclusive development. There are three things that form inclusive development. Access to basic services. I'll come to that later, but this is the general impact you expect. And then it widens investment horizon for religiously sensitive investors. There are people who say, well, as long as you have this riba system in a conventional bank or conventional bonds, I will not put my money. So when you issue SUKUK, all these few people who are religiously sensitive, you give them opportunity, you give them horizon for them to earn income and then make money. Okay. Also to tackle poverty, you know, when you promote financial inclusion, the overall aim is to reduce poverty in the society. And then what are the expected results you get? How this achieve or change lives? Then what happened? When, people who are on bank contribute money to SUKUK, they need to open an account to get their returns. So in return, what happened? On bank become bankable. You see, so now you are promoting your financial institution, promoting financial inclusion through SUKUK. Because you open it wide, it's okay, bring 10, the United Capital is minimum 10,000, so that everybody can come, market woman can bring 10,000. But before they operate, you say, okay, go and open an account because you need to transfer money to them. And when the income is also coming, they translate, you cannot give physical money. So in doing so, you are promoting financial inclusion. So you have more people who are now becoming bank account holders. Sorry. Okay, the second one is it improves access to basic services. You know, when the government goes to the market, flows to cook, get all this money, they use money for road, for water, sanitation, electricity, so improve access to what they call it, basic services. And this is one of the key, element of inclusive development. And then support human capital development. The government deploy money for education, scholarships, to improve, the human capital. And lastly here, job opportunities from infrastructure project. When the government finance project infrastructure, employ a lot of people locally and as a result of that, they create jobs. And then the last element of why SUKUK, then is strengthening social safety nets for society, society most vulnerable. So those who are vulnerable, the government take care of them. They have this social investment program that the government is doing a lot, pumping money there, here and there. We can see that all these vulnerable people in the societies are also benefiting. And the last point, because the title is about achieving lives, I focus on achieving lives through all this financial stability and financial inclusion. And the last one is sustainable development. You all heard about UN SDG, which about 103 countries globally sign on. So the government of Nigeria or CBN, if you see the circular to the banks, they ask all the banks to write about sustainability report. So that means they also key in. So driving sustainability is very crucial to everybody. So there must be people-centered inclusive infrastructure if you finance what they call the SUKUK. Now, let me explain inclusive infrastructure. The government is financing a road from point A to point B. There will be a road, but between point A and B, there are many villages along the road. What will happen? In an inclusive infrastructure, you make sure you do what they call a small road, trunk road, thank you, to each one of them. So it's not just what is wrong in our, what they call development approaches, well, A to B, forget it. But what about all these big communities along the line? So the government will do one thing, in inclusive infrastructure, you carried all these people along. I will explain what it means in the second part there. So we need a people-centered inclusive infrastructure, social intervention, economic expansion for sustainable development. Now, let's look at the result that comes out when you have all these things there. Oh, okay. Now, there will be better income and life-changing opportunities for rural communities. You see, so when you have point A to B, the government take money to, so it's changed their lives. Okay. Second point is access to market for farmers. All these rural areas who have farms here and there, they can quickly take their goods to the nearest market. Or there can be cluster of what they call it, economic activities. The government can set up small markets whereby people on the road can stop by and then buy. And then the government can also work closely with private sector. Let me see. Yes, private collaboration to create jobs. You know, between inclusive infrastructure is not enough from one A to B. Communities are also helped, but you need to bring private sector to do what? To put petrol station, create market, plaza along the road here and there. So when we say inclusive infrastructure, it's not solely mere roads. You have to bring in private sector. You have to work with all the communities along the road, so to change their lives. So SUKUK can bring about all this transformation. And lastly here, it boosts resilience against natural disasters and climate change risks, because once you have the money, you can ensure that all the communities along the roads are taken care of, including in case of flooding, in case of natural disaster. And then doing all this will help the government to attain SDGs. And then my conclusion and takeaways. Well, SUKUK has come of age. It's a game changer and a catalyst for resource mobilization to expand businesses and finance key development projects. SUKUK has gained acceptance in non-Muslim countries, now issued by sovereign, corporate, and financial institutions across the world. I think we have seen that in our discussion. All the stakeholders in SUKUK are winners. We call it triple win. Why triple win? The obligor, what they call the borrower, gets the fund needed to expand operation or to finance economic activities. In the case of government, it got the money to finance the roads. The investors, the SUKUK holders, make more money in excess of the capital, and the beneficiaries of the project experience transformation in their well-being and development. So it's a triple win when the government or anybody issues SUKUK. SUKUK mutual help, SUKUK mutual fund, like we have this capital, capital SUKUK funds. It helps investors to mutually diversify their investment because everybody put resources together. So it's a mutual benefit. It is safer and a smart investment, helping to bridge income inequality and financial exclusion as the scheme pulls funds from all investors irrespective of their income status. This is the last slide. When you participate in the capital, capital mutual fund or any SUKUK mutual fund, socially responsible investors, there are people who say, well, I'm not really after profit per se, but let me use my money, put in this pool, mutual fund to help other people, because if you put more money, the returns increase. So you're not really interested. So socially responsible investors will be contributing to change the lives of the less well-off in a win-win outcome. And now I have some recommendation for the government. There's a need to rethink SUKUK insurance in our country. It's better to move from a paradigm maintenance. What we have so far is short-term and medium-term domestic SUKUK insurance the government is doing. I'm proposing here to a paradigm shift long-term domestic issue SUKUK issuance. This is now becoming a global trend and best practice. Rather, the government seeking long-term loans from multilateral development bank, which comes with conditionalities. So we have a lot of resources seated somewhere in the country. The government can say, instead of short time, let's go for short time. Finally, we need to have active role of philanthropic foundations and social funds like SUKUK and our CAF institutions in SUKUK issue, especially in financing SDG. So it is imperative for the government and financial institutions to consider issuing social impact SUKUK to pull resources from donor institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bello. A round of applause for him, sir. Sorry, sir. There's a question and answer session, so you just stay on. I'm sure you actually try to make us Islamic finance experts. It's no wonder you're actually a doctor. You gave us a doctoral thesis. We have just 10 minutes for questions. I'm sure people will have questions, 1 or 2 questions that we can actually take. So if you have questions, just signify by raising up your hands. The ushers are close to you. All right, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Please, I have just 1 or 2 questions. Forgive my ignorance, because me, I just draw houses. I don't know much about finance. But it's been bothering me. You say Islamic banking, no interest. But now somebody is taking money. And I can see even from the federal government bonds, there is a percentage given there, and it's a fixed percentage. Is that not tantamount to taking interest fees? Because I thought I'm not the learned Malams can help us here. Because if I take money from you and without even going to trade, and I say I'm paying you 10%, is that no riba? That is my question, number 1.
Can I? Okay.
Then, no, let me show that. Just one more. There is the question also on this, it's a long term. This one, I just want to be educated. If I subscribe now, actually, I think I subscribe to the federal, but if I subscribe now, when do I start getting the benefit back as an investor? Do I put money now and you tell me it matures in 30 years? When do I start getting benefits back from it? I think I'll just stop with this 2 so that other people can ask questions. Thank you.
Let me start with the second
Sorry,
one.
sir. I want to take all the questions together, so let us ask the other ones.
I will forget to. Let me make it dynamic so that at least so questions are not repeated.
All right,
let me start with the second one, which is very simple. Whether short, medium, or long-term SUKUK issuance, you start getting your money because if you look at terms and conditions, there's periodic coupons. It is stated there half yearly, or it could be quarterly. It all depends on one. So the moment you buy SUKUK, they will write to you, I mean, it's part of the prospectus. It's written there that the government will pay you half yearly, the same percentage they promise you. So there's no problem about when you're supposed to. It's already settled. You don't need to wait for 1 year or 2 years. It's mentioned in the prospectus, part of the agreement, that you'll be paid half yearly, every 6 months. The first one is, yes. Yes.
So when you say it's a 30-year bond, after 30 years, I'm getting the bulk of my money back.
You get your money full, capital. Nothing, you don't miss anything.
And it's closed.
It's close. But there's a small hiccup there a bit if you go for a long time. You know you cannot control inflation. You can never foresee, even if you look at the boot FGN SUKUK, the one I mentioned to you, if you look at the prospectus, the government also mentioned the risk. That inflation, they cannot promise you inflation, whether it will go up or down. So if it goes down, your money appreciates. If it goes up, your money devalues. So 30 years, you must be prepared for this risk. That's the first question. The second one is, you talk about interest in the bank and what have you. You know, in the course of my presentation, I said that's what they call markup. We don't use the word interest. We call it markup or administrative service. Look at the word administrative service. I want to give you money. There must be, you have people you employed in the bank who are supposed to be paid salaries. People who have to manage the project, if I give the example of Islamic Development Bank, we give a loan to Nigeria. Staff will have to come to Nigeria to negotiate. So who's going to pay for the money? So when the project is ongoing also, we have to send staff also to come and monitor, follow up, have all this sort of discussion. Who's going to bear the responsibility? So it's built in. There's a formula to calculate markup. It's not that it's at random. So it's not interest. I think there's a misconception here. If you want to take a loan from Islamic Bank, the bank discuss with you your needs and tell you for these activities, we'll be charging you this amount of money as a markup. It has to be transparent. They have to explain to you. You have the right to ask on what basis you did the calculation. It's not like you go to a conventional bank, they sell 30%, take it or leave it. In Islamic bank, you have to negotiate. If they tell you 5% you have to pay, because over the years they have many years experience of handling similar things that you are coming to. You want to build an estate, you come to them, you say, okay, I want to take 1 billion. They look back at your database, look at the environment, look at inflation, look at many factors associated with the cost of fund. They build everything to it. They say, well, they come to their conclusion that it's going to be 5%. So that's the process of, it's not, you may tend to disagree that there's an interest. It's not interest per se. We'll call it markup. Yes. Yes. No. Look at it this way. I told you there are different ways. You have the equity base, you have the what you call lease base and sales gate. If you have a woman selling akara next to you there, and you want to help her, you say, okay, madam, come. I'll give you 20,000 to run this business. But when you make profit, you will give me 10%, 20%. So what's wrong there in advance? It's an agreement upfront. What is wrong in that? Because it's a win-win situation. You are helping her to live successfully, expand her business, and you are seated at home, you are not doing anything. But you are making profit. It's like Uber. You see all this gig economy. You buy a car, you give to a driver, you give him a condition. Every week, keke na pep, you must submit 25,000. You are seated in the house. Are you doing anything? So it's the same thing here too. So you put your money in a bank or anything, someone is making use of your money. So the cost of fund is what they are giving you back, the profit they make. So you cannot say because you're relaxed in the house, someone is running business for you, any money coming from there is haram. No, you have your own halal money, and you give to someone to run business for you. Islam doesn't want you to keep money. You have to make sure the money circulate. It's against Islam to keep money and then you sit on it. The money must move. You have to redistribute the money to run the economy. If you're a rich person, you want to use that to help people. That's why we say there is social impact SUKUK. If you feel you don't need the money, the profit that comes here you want to give back to social fund, no problem. But if you want to make money in a halal way, put your money in SUKUK. Sharias have certified it to be halal, so you don't need to bother yourself. You need to, if you're an investor, you need to be relaxing. All these rich people, Dangote, water here and there, they don't need to bother. You have the money, put it somewhere to turn it around for you. So that's the concept of, economy. You cannot just sit down on money. The money has to circulate. So those who have the money should use the money to help the poor. Which other question?
All right, sir. We actually have an audience online. We'll come to you. So from the online platform Zoom, we have Ijala Pius. Please, can you unmute and put on your video and ask your question, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm Ijala Pius, watching live from Glasgow at the moment. I really followed, more especially the teaching or lectures in which my mind has been disabused, more especially because I was thinking it as being religious. Thank you for that. My question is about borrowing. Is my audio out?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. When I was following Dr. When he was presenting, he was talking about borrowing. And my concern was on the SDGs. Looking at the system of governance here internationally that I've been here, people that work, let's say, like startup businesses, the government or some financial institutions support them with, if you don't need to have like, oh God, the collateral, the asset base, the asset bank that he was explaining. As long as your business is tangible, they will have the guidance to support you. So is this SUKUK, is it also functioning that way? And anybody that have that qualities, that qualities, can it also be supported in such ways, both finances and intellectually? Thank you, sirs.
Well, I think if I get you right, you're talking about individual issuing SUKUK. It's not easy for individual to issue SUKUK because a lot of things take into, because you need to set up SPV. So what do you call it? It requires going for CAC to register an organization, and you must be a company. It's not an individual who issues SUKUK.
Yeah, yes.
So it has to be a company. Yeah.
Yes, like a private company. That doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Somebody having a private company or having a right to function, operate in Nigeria, you understand, as a company, not like sole proprietorship. Talking about a limited liability company. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you don't have any problem. You have a company, you want to flow SUKUK, but you need a bank to support you. You cannot just go to the market. You need, what do you call it, trustee people to help you issue it. It's not anybody just wake up one day and say, I want to issue SUKUK. There's a mechanism and a procedure. So when you are ready, you get permission from a regulator as well too. It's not that, it's very straightforward that way. So you need to set up a Sharia body also that will have to vet what you want to do. And then you must have a prospectus. So there are, if you study the FGN procedure or corporate SUKUK in Nigeria, you can learn best practice and then follow it. Anytime you are ready, you can get in touch with United Capital SUKUK Fund. They've just done their own last year. They can share their experience, but maybe they will charge you for fees as advisory services.
Thank you for the information. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sirs.
Please, can you make it very quick and straight to the point, please? All right, thank you.
Doctor, thank you very much. When you were explaining the difference between the similarities and the differences between the SUKUK and the T-bond, you mentioned can be defaulted. And I was a bit taken aback. So I wanted you to kind of throw more light in that. And then to also help with the first person who asked the question, I think what you may need to throw more light between what is the difference between an interest and also profit. Because he is probably seeing it in a different perspective. Because for profit, it means there must be something put in to be able to get something that an output that is shared. You get why the interest is like it's taken from one particular source or one stand by maybe by the person who is that's the initiator is the one who is now telling you, okay, this is the amount that's fixed. But in the aspect of profit, it means something has to come out for both of us to share. So I think that's where he's getting it a bit. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, let me start with the reason why a company may default, especially under asset base. Normally, under asset back, which form about 10% of global SUKUK, you hardly find this problem because at the end of the day, you can go to court and gain access to the asset. In asset base, I mean, it's the company that is guaranteeing the asset. The company can default. When the company defaults, it cannot pay all its obligations. So what do you want it to do? It will say, sorry, I cannot fulfill my terms and conditions. So what do you want him to do? I mean, you can go to court, take 10, 15 years to see what you can, maybe if you're lucky, you get few naira out of what you invested. So that's what we mean by default. So under asset back, very rarely because you will have recourse to the underlying asset. In asset base, anything can go wrong. It's a company that is guaranteeing. So in the case of FGN now, it's the federal government that is guaranteeing and it's using CBN to pay. So you can see that federal government, as long as Nigeria exists, you get your money. So that's one. The second issue is this business of interest and profit. I mean, let me try to explain better with the SUKUK we are talking about. You know, it's not that the government has done some simulation, some work behind the scene to say, look, if I have to rent these roads, how much can I make in terms of amount, in terms of rental? So, okay, if you have to pull it, I mean, they've had experience installing toll gates in some roads in the past, and they have rough idea the amount they can make over the years. And then you have trunk A, trunk B, or what have you. So if you take Ibadan to Lagos, it's a high volume road. If you go from here to the airport, every second you are paying 200 or 300. So if you put a toll gate, I believe they have experts who can do some simulation and come up with rough estimate. So it's based on that knowledge that the government came to conclusion that, well, this is going to be 11.74, sometimes 16%. The first one, the issue was around 16.74. Later on, it moves down to 11. So that means if it is just fixed, it's supposed to be 16 throughout. So that means the government is also factoring in many variables to say, well, from past experience, from available information, from similar outfit in other developing countries, this is the rough amount of money you can gain from toll gates if you have to rent these roads for profit. So that's how they arrive at the figures. It's not just at random they pick the figures. It has to, there will be, I mean, I'm sure the expert is here, I mean, Alaji Mashido, and then my respected brother here, the chairman, who can throw light on how they come up with these figures when they say what they call the price of the SUKUK is 11% or 12%. So in Islam, because everything is linked to the asset, I believe there's an homework. From where I'm coming from, Islamic Development Bank, we have internal mechanism of calculating the formula in advance based on many variables. We don't cheat you. If you want to take money from us and you insist that I want to see how you arrive at 5%, we share with you. Because this part of, Islamic finance is about justice, fairness, and transparency. It's your right to know. That's the beauty of Islamic finance. If anybody wants to invest and say, well, you promise that you want to give me 4% or 1%, can you please share with me how you arrive at 4.1%? They should. It's part of the requirement under Islamic finance.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay. All right, sir.
Thank you very much. My first question has to do with, in analyzing the features of Islamic finance, you mentioned the fact that apart from being non-interest, there is a feature of uncertainty. And my worry is there any business that you're going to have that would have uncertainty? My second question is to do with the asset-backed and asset-based securities. And you mentioned the fact that for asset-backed securities, it's more popular, but it has more default than the asset-based. And one wonders, why is it that the one that has more default is more utilized than the other one? My third question is to do with the issuance of SUKUK. Why is it that most of the SUKUK that have been issued, even worldwide, are sovereign SUKUK? In Nigeria, apart from Osun State, I'm not sure we've had any issuance of SUKUK apart from the federal government. Is it because of the fact that people still don't have confidence in the SUKUK instrument? And lastly, you recommended that federal government should continue to issue SUKUK. Don't you think if federal government continue to issue SUKUK, it will actually crowd out both the subnational and the corporate? Probably that's why for the last 10 years or so, we haven't had any subnational and corporate, like I said, apart from Osun. Thank you.
I think there are 4 questions you asked. One is about uncertainty. Uncertainty here means when one party feels that he has some information the other one doesn't have, and it creates some doubt in the process. So that uncertainty is what Islam tried to, if you have asymmetric information, where one person, you have some issues in mind that you have not clarified, there is uncertainty that you really want to find out. So before you put money there, you have to make sure you get all the facts right, and everything is certain because Islam is against speculation, and then you don't want to put money and then you start regretting tomorrow. So your information must be right, your certainty about the company, whether the company is actually registered or not. Now the company has floated another round of SUKUK, like United Capital. It's all right to do your homework to avoid any uncertainty tomorrow. That way, if I knew, maybe I shouldn't have put my money there if this information had got to me. So you need to avoid any uncertainty that will bring to you regret tomorrow. So please, that's what you call the first one. Now, please, let me get it clear. You have asset back and asset base. In the practice today globally, it's more of asset base than asset back. So why? God knows, because, if you float international SUKUK, for instance, it's difficult for you when you live in a third world country. You put like now, Turkey floated international SUKUK, and then you buy and they say it's asset back. If there's a problem tomorrow, you are living in Nigeria, you have what you call a sovereign jurisdiction that will not allow you to go into the country to take your money. You get it, man? So mostly people prefer to say asset base is easier to recover your money. But when this domestic issuance, it's far better for you to ensure it is asset back than asset based, because you live in that country. You can go to court, you have recourse to the entity here and there. So that's why when it comes to international SUKUK issuance, it's more of asset based than asset back, because you can sue the company. You follow the argument. But when it's asset back in the third world country, the country that you don't have assets, you live in Nigeria, you want to, the cost of going to court in those countries here and there would be very difficult for you. Sovereign immunity also, that you cannot come from anywhere to say you want to. So that's why most international SUKUK are asset back. I'm asset based than asset back. But domestic SUKUK, I think ideally is supposed to be asset back. That's the reason I want to. Now you talk about SUKUK and why sovereign, why people are more, if I get you right. Then, no, there are more corporate SUKUK. If you see the graphs I show you, I mean, the corporate SUKUK is also rising. 77 between 2005 and 2020, it rose 79%. But the sovereign SUKUK was about 108%, while financial institutions were 309 institutions, because that's where the opportunities are. People put more trust in financial institutions, having the ability to, make payments, and then the turnover is also very high. So this is the only reason I can give to you. Now, the further one, it says the federal government continue to issue SUKUK to crowd out what they call the private sector here. And no, the SUKUK is crowding in private sector because they have surplus money, they have liquidity, they want to put the money there. During the pandemic, if you put your money in the bank today, savings is 1.25. Which one is better for you? To put in SUKUK where you have 11% or 5% or 10%. So that's why everybody wants, that's why every time it's oversubscribed. Pension fund has a lot of liquidity. All the corporate societies also have a lot, huge liquidity. Everybody's sitting there looking for opportunity. So that's why every time it's oversubscribed. My respected brother says last time it around 600% oversubscribed. I can tell you new one again will be more than 1,000 oversubscribed, because the money is there all over the places. Now that's why we are proposing here, federal government may move from short-term, medium-term to long-term financing, because the money is there. They can just encourage more people to come out instead of going to World Bank, IMF, with all these conditionalities. IMF, World Bank today, I think IMF 3.5 billion, they refuse to give to Nigeria because they say you have to harmonize your foreign exchanges and what exchange rate. Why do you have to put all these conditions, put tough, when you can mobilize resources locally? So when you go to World Bank, 20 years, 40 years, what the loan given to you, you can do it locally cheaper. And people are more happier to see their money in their country than going to, and what you are doing here, let me tell you the secret. The World Bank does not give the money free. They also go to bonds. Let me how all these BB companies, all these MDBs, they issue bonds. Because they are AAA, they can go to the market at a lower interest rate, because it's a AAA institutions. So their bond they sell is lower. And then they pass on what they call it, the money to the borrower at a higher rate. So the difference is their own profit. That's how all these MDBs, African, all these institutions, this is how they operate. Yes.
What I meant is, let's say for instance, DMO.
Yes.
They have an issuance timetable that at every period they're going to issue certain scopes. If as an investor, and I realize that by December, DMO is going to issue a particular scope, and I happen to also be interested in issuing scope. Let's say I'm a subnational.
Yes. Quasi-sovereign.
Yes, so would it be appropriate for me to now issue sukuk sometimes in November, December? Certainly not, because the major key investors, the PFAs, would rather invest in the FGN bond, Indian sukuk, than my own sukuk.
Yes.
So my point is, as federal government continue to issue sukuk, because the appetite from the investor side would certainly tilt toward the federal government because it's largely risk-free. You realize that the tendency for the subnationals and the corporate to issue is going to be very limited. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but it all
so if we continue to say they should be doing it, and probably that's why in the last 10 years or so, like I said, apart from Ocean, there hasn't been any sukuk issuances. Because every rational investor would prefer to invest in sukuk issue by the federal government than the one issue by either subnational or
yeah, but let me tell you the secret too. It all depends on pricing. If you are giving me 20%, and the government is giving 10%, 11%, where would they go? People are interested in money.
Nigerians are interested in security now.
So, well, it's a dilemma. I think the chairman wants to intervene.
Sorry, sir. The DG demo wants to speak.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, they're also online.
Thank you very much for giving me audience, and I apologize that I'm late. I actually was at another function of stakeholders in the same building, just that it dragged long. My name is Patience Soni, and I'm happy to be here. I can see some familiar faces. My sister from many years is here. I've got her today. I will mention the others. Okay, so the reason I really came, apart from the fact that UBA, yes, that UBA is a friend of the house, is to say that SUKUK is very dear to the DMO. So I thought at least let's support this meeting and show that it is something that we recommend, you know, as an instrument in the market. I would have sat quietly, but there was some Q&A going on. I thought I should clarify those. But I think you've done an excellent job trying to explain. My friend was clearly concerned about the issuance by sovereign and subnational. Okay, so the first point to say, when the sovereign typically issues a security, at least as far as DMO is concerned, it is we want to initiate something that the market has not done. There's no policy. There hasn't been any guinea pig. So once it is good, just like we issued 20-year bond and issued 30-year, and some are saying we should issue 40. So once we've gone through the process and learned all the lessons, then others are okay. There's now a precedent. There's a rule book that others can follow. So in issuing it, we're not only raising money that is project-tied for the government, but also we're trying to create an opportunity for corporates, not only state governments, to issue sukuk. Okay, let me also clarify. It takes a while before they put all of those documents together, go through SEC, go through DMO for debt sustainability. But I wanted to say that in terms of statistics, actually a state government has just issued a sukuk. I think that's Katsina State, whether it's 50 billion, I don't know how much they've offered. And there are probably one or two state governments that are in the process. So I've seen them because they've applied for debt sustainability analysis. So it's not true that they're not issuing. It's just because the process takes time. They have to watch you learn and make mistakes, and then they come, and it goes. Don't forget, it has to go through their state executive council and their own state assembly. So it's a process. So we're looking forward to more. So hold on for those more. You answered the question properly about people are concerned about risk, so they will buy only the sovereign. The reality is that investors, including pension funds, are attracted by yields, and they're sitting on a lot of money. In the markets, you talk about risk and returns. Okay, I agree, the sovereign will not default. So if the sovereign was at 11, a PFA or another investor is happy, 11%, is happy to buy that of a state at 13. So there's a risk premium that he has put inside. And if you look at the data from the markets, you will see that those state governments that issued bonds have raised more than the amount they offered. So there's money on the table, okay? So there's no fear. If you're willing to take the risk and get a higher return, you will get the money. So all of that is happening. You will see more state governments coming in because rates are higher. Let me add as well, even in the international markets, fairly often, when institutions within the country want to borrow, unless they are very established, they wait for the sovereign. Like we're working now on a Eurobond. We're also working on another SUKUK, which may be in the market end of September or October. Some issuers in Nigeria who want to issue Eurobonds will say, let's wait till they go. We'll see what rate they get so that people can price us properly. So there's a benefit in the sovereign being out there. It actually opens the door for the subnationals and the corporates. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Alhaji Machido want to take the floor.
Thank you so much. My name is Atahiru Machido, and of course, I'm the ACE member of this particular fund. And I would like to also clarify issues that, of course, the DGDMO patient Oniha just clarified for Manir Gorzo, especially when it comes to crowding the market by the sovereign issuances. One thing we should understand that in February 2019, PENCOM set the ball rolling for pension fund administrators to create a multi-fund structure where Fund 6 out of this multi-funds is going to be a non-interest fund. And of course, just in July, a month ago, this particular last month, they have already said, on your marks, get set, go, start moving the funds into the non-interest instruments. And based on the analysis conducted, out of the 14 trillion that so far is asset under management for all the PFAs, at least 2 trillion will be searching for instruments that are Sharia compliant, that they can invest into it. And here we have Federal Government of Nigeria. In 2017, they came for 100 billion, where they got about 105 billion. In 2018, they came for 100 billion, where they got about 134 billion. And recently, in 2020, they came for 150 billion, and they were able to get 669 billion. Now, all these three issuances was just about 362 billion so far that is sovereign issuance of the SUKUK. And of course, we also have family homes that just came last month to raise 10 billion. Chairman has already mentioned it. They were able to get 21 billion. They had to return the 11 billion. So it is showing that if we have pension fund administrators alone looking for instrument of about 2 trillion, that is just a single industry. What about the non-interest financial institutions? What about the HNIs? What about the other institutional investors that are looking for it? So definitely, sovereign issuances that are coming for 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion will not crowd the SUKUK market at the moment. And of course, because of this issue of the pension fund administrators to come up with this one, there are a lot of potential issuance that currently are gearing up to hit the market. And I can tell you that specifically there is an Islamic bank that is trying to raise another SUKUK as additional Tier 1 capital, and they are about to file with the Securities and Exchange Commission very soon. There is also a PLC company that is listed on the floor of the exchange that is also trying to raise another 10 billion from the SUKUK that they are going to do. There are so many real estate SUKUK at the moment that are going on that are real estate SUKUK, and yet they are successfully being floated now and there. So I believe it's not going to be crowded with respect to all that aspect. I will also talk about the uncertainty mentioned. Now, if we are talking about the uncertainties, we are not saying that any uncertainties is actually prohibited. No, there are minor uncertainties that are acceptable. If you are just walking down this particular room and you are about to go out, you may actually hit something there. There is uncertainty for you moving from here to there. Also, if you are going to, if you have a headache and you want to take just Panadol, there is uncertainty in taking Panadol. Ordinary water that you are going to take, you don't know whether there is something inside there. There is uncertainty there. So minor uncertainties in Islamic finance are acceptable. However, there are excessive uncertainties that you are not supposed to play as long as there is this excessive uncertainties. And typically, we always give example. If you said you are going to buy, for instance, sheep For instance, maybe for instance, a bird in the air, somebody said, I'm going to shoot that birds, and how much are you going to buy it? And you just negotiate, and you said you are going to. That is really uncertainty that you cannot, probably the birds may run away. Or maybe fish, I want to go and catch fish. How much are you going to buy it? That is really uncertainties. These are the uncertainties that are being referred, not actually the minor uncertainties that are there, because you have to also handle some of the uncertainties. For you to even go into mudaraba and musharaka, you are going into the venture that you really don't know how it is going to translate, and you have to observe it as Sharia compliant activities. So it's not that minor uncertainties are not acceptable. Yes, they are accepted. It is only excessive uncertainties. And of course, we in the Islamic finance, we have a kind of way we are explaining the uncertainties, which is usually called gara in the terms. Now that is, you said, U is excessive uncertainties, S is speculations. We also have information asymmetric, where one party only got the information, and we have deception. As long as you have seen all these issues in a transaction, then you are not supposed to go into it, because there is really excessive uncertainties in it. Thank you so much.
Sorry, without belaboring the point, the DG mentioned about debt sustainability. Maybe because she didn't add the language that he understands. He was the former Director General of Securities Exchange Commission. ISA, is it 223? I think it's also one of the factors where the sub-sovereigns are finding it difficult to come to the market. Thank you very much.
I must say the question and answer is the most entertaining item on the agenda today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bello. All right, I think our time is fast spent, but I think that's something we can take out from this program. Every one of us have a thorough understanding of what Islamic finance and what SUKUK are all about. So the next on the agenda is to actually introduce someone who's going to share a personal experience of how she's been able to invest as a Sharia compliant investor who basically has an avid love for a lot of Sharia compliant products. Her name is actually Aija Sutura Aisha Bello. Aisha holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Economics from University of Maiduguri, an MBA and MSc from the Southern New Hampshire University, USA. She has over 30 years experience across industries such as investment banking, project finance, infrastructure, commercial banking, with reputable institutions across the world, also including the World Bank, OPEC Fund for International Development in Vienna, Austria, Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission, Debt Management Office, etc. She was the public-private partnership lead on the £72.8 million DFI-funded UK-Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Fund to support development of the $3 billion pipeline of bankable PPP projects. Also, $1 billion of which is expected to close by 2023. She's currently the managing partner in InfraGap, executive director infrastructure at Vista Resources, and was appointed the director in United Capital on December 14, 2020. Please make welcome Aija Sutura Aisha Bello as she comes forward.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to say that next time I'm speaking, I'll make sure I won't speak after Doctor. His presentation was so good. I learned so many things that I didn't know about Islamic financing. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols. I'm excited to be here to share my personal experience as a devout Muslim in Nigeria trying to invest her funds in halal-compliant investments that are in line with my faith and my religious belief. The term halal is an Arabic word used in the Quran to define what is lawful or permitted. Halal investing requires investment decisions to be made in accordance with Islamic principles. Today's event presents an inclusive option for anyone to invest, but is particularly appealing for Muslims. Until recently, there were not many options available for investing the halal way. while the available options were not regarded as high yielding. The low returns and limited halal investment products in the market, such as Mudarba, have not proved to be very attractive to investors seeking such alternatives. Essentially, with this fund, you don't have to worry about adhering to your ethical and religious beliefs when making investment decisions, because we have done that for you. As an avid investor with a personal preference for Sharia-compliant investments, I've had experiences with various Sharia-based investments, but SUKUK stands out to be the most desirable for me. SUKUK provides a win-win situation for stakeholders in Nigeria, as it helps to bridge the gap for infrastructure funding. I'm a PPP expert, so anything that puts money in infrastructure is a win-win for me, with huge benefits for the large populace, while at the same time providing a secure and equitable means of wealth acquisition and distribution. The relaunch of United Capital SUKUK Fund would provide access to investment products for anyone, regardless of their values or income. United Capital has continued to demonstrate they are steadily working to make mutual funds and other investment products more inclusive and accessible to retail investors, especially with respect to ethical investing and alternative finance. While considering the opportunity presented by investing in SUKUK bonds or SUKUK funds, it is worth noting that the availability of such products from reputable firms is limited. So we do hope you will take advantage of the opportunity presented here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hajia Sutura Aisha Bello, for that wonderful speech. I would say that I had wanted to be the one to introduce you, but it's okay. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our next speaker. But before then, there are people we need to acknowledge, people we need to recognize their presence as well. Munir Guarzo, the former DG, SEC, and also Alhaji Garba Ahmed, former director, CBN, Alhaji Atahiru Machido, Sharia advisor, and of course, Ms. Patience Oniha, the DG, DMO, Alhaji Kabir Ola Yola, I hope I pronounced it right, Chairman, Ansaruddin Abuja, Honorable Ikra Bilbis, Alhaji Muhammad Shehu Rufai, SA to DG Directorate of Technical Aid Corp. Please put a round of applause for these amazing people. So next, I would like to call on Mr. Sonny Anene. Should I say the charismatic? The charismatic Sonny Anene. I beg your pardon. Okay, Group Executive Director, United Capital PLC, for the closing remark. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sonny Anene.
Thank you very much. For that introduction, for me to stand on the existing protocol. On behalf of the board, management and staff of United Capital PLC, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to this occasion. We appreciate you immensely. I'd like to thank the chairman, Alhaji Mustafa Bintubi, for his time. We are very grateful for your time. I like the comments you made about the interest being shown in the Nigerian fund SUKUK issued, and then even the corporate ones that are oversubscribed. That shows that there's hope for our fund as well. We are very sure that in the next few months, the 4 million units of unit to have will be oversubscribed. I also would like to thank Dr. Bilo. Thank you very much for your speech, or let me say lecture, on changing lives and achieving sustainable development to SUKUK, which is a very apt one, which highlights also the value of SUKUK fund, which highlights the value that SUKUK fund brings to the investors. My special thanks also goes to our very own director, Hajia Sutura Bello. Thank you very much for sharing your personal perspective that investors are having in balancing their ethical values with the objective of generating their long-term wealth. We have highlighted the benefits of the SUKUK fund and how the capital as a group is positioned to enable sustainable investing through our SUKUK fund. For clarity, the SUKUK fund is a fund that pulls investment from investors. Dr. Bello has mentioned that it helps financial inclusion. So this fund is enabled, or is supposed to help us get investment from retail and other investors. It pulls investment and then invest in funds or SUKUK funds that have been issued. We are not issuing the SUKUK fund, we are investing in the one that have been issued. And we make sure that it meets the halal profit objective of the investors to ensure that we don't breach any we don't breach a breach of any kind. We have employed experts. Tahir Mashidu handles that for us, ensure that they help us to in the selection process of what to invest in. So the fund is growing rapidly, but what has not been mentioned is that the return is above the market currently. So it's growing, but because of the selection we do, we make sure that it's also, apart from being compliant with the Islamic tenets, it also meets expectations of the investors. So we thank you all for coming. We hope that you'll be subscribing very soon. Yours and the family members you subscribe. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, the Group Executive Director, United Capital PLC, Mr. Sonny Anene. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think we're almost at the end of it. Thank you once again for your patience. Just to announce that we actually have a package for food for every one of us. We can pick that on our way out. So right now, what we want to do is actually have order of photography, just to have record of the events for posterity's sake. And so the first order of photography, we have the group, CEO, the Group ED, the MD Asset Management, the Director, Chairman of the event, the Speaker, the Sharia Advisor to the Fund, the Chief Imam, National Mosque, the Zonal Coordinator, that's FATS FCT, Alhaji Ringing Abulai, DGDMO, Chairman Ansarudin, sorry about that, Abuja. So those will be the first order. The second order will be the GCEO, the GED, the MD Director, we have Mani Guazo, Ambassador Bello Sheu Ringim, Ambassador Usman Saki, Barisa Nasiru Dangiri, we have Mansu Kofi, we have Gabo Ahmed, Abulai Ringim, Alhaji Abubakar Suleiman, for the second order, while for the third order we have the Group CEO, the Group CEO. Okay, we have the Group CEO, the Group ED, the MD, the Director, the Regional Director. We have Alaji and Haija Sunubi Babatunde. We have Mohammed Shehu Rufiar. We have Alaji Ganiyu Abayomi. We have Michael Showmi and Honorable Ikwa Billis. I think that's all. We can actually now proceed to the photo shoot stand outside. Just outside the door, yes. Yeah, so we can move now. Thank you very much once again. It's a pleasure actually having to spend time with you guys today.
Recording stopped.